Hey, Razzballers, how are you? It's Nick Capozzi. Monday, May 26th. I show up for work today on the long weekend because, that's what I do. But a very happy Memorial Day, especially to those servings and those who've obviously given the ultimate sacrifice. I know we're kind of a silly show, but with that said, it's a very serious day. So a genuine happy Memorial Day to everyone out there in the United States, and just a regular happy Monday to everyone else. Really cool show today. We've actually got a couple of guys we've never had on the show before, and it is because we tape during the day, and these guys have real jobs. Some of them maybe even sell thermal packaging. So without further ado, here he is, all the way from Minnesota, Mr. Dan. Oh, Dan, what's up, buddy? Welcome to Razzball Radio, brother.
Thanks, Nick.
What is it? The all beard show today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. All beards. It was going to be, it looks like you kind of got a morning fro there as well. So it was almost a morning fro and beard show, but figured I'd put a hat on for you.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you joining us. Before we get into this, because you do a lot of different things for Razzball, and we're very happy to have you as part of the team. But how does a guy from New York wearing a terrible baseball hat today? We're not going to talk about that. But how does a guy from New York wind up in Minnesota? Because to me, it's kind of like a Canadian winding up in Phoenix. Well, maybe not so much. Maybe a Dutch guy winding up in the Netherlands Antilles. Okay,
Yeah,
this isn't working. How'd you wind up in Minnesota, Dano?
good analogy. My wife's parents live out here, so we met in Binghamton, New York.
Binghamton, go
There-
Red Wings.
Yeah, and the Binghamton Mets. So I got to watch my young Mets quite a bit. Saw David Wright, Jose Reyes, and unfortunately Mike Pelfrey, who I get to see now in a Minnesota uniform.
Careful, you're dating yourself, Dano.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, my wife's parents live out here. So we moved out here. We got married, graduated, and moved in about a month's time without jobs. And but things are good now.
Good
But
stuff.
yeah,
Any good delis in the Twin Cities?
no good. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say no good bagels in the Twin
Yeah, I
Cities.
bet. Any
Uh,
good knishes?
Knish is nice. No, I haven't had one at least. But whenever my mother visits me, she stuffs her onboard luggage with bagels and reeks up the whole plane. Yeah,
Anything to declare, ma'am? Yes, some sesame seeds.
yeah, garlic bagel.
Garlic. Oh, garlic bagels. Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm from Montreal originally, so we got pretty darn good bagels there. That's props to St. Viator Street and St. Viator Bagel. There's my Montreal reference for the day.
Nice,
Try and jam
nice.
it in every chance I get. So Dano, you used to be kind of our OBP guy. I love that everyone just comes, by the way, on the show drinking coffee. I mean, there's
Yeah,
something great about that. Um, but you used to do OBP, but now you do a lot more deep impact writing
yeah.
for Razzball. How often are your posts up on Razzball.com?
I'd say about 1 to 2 times a week. I've been allocated the deep impact series, but at times I put up some irrational insight on X Babbitt for hitters, and I like to look at luck and skill for pitchers and some pitched repertoire stuff. So once in a while they let me put something up random where I can jibber jabber, but uh, deep impact is usually once a week. I think tomorrow will be my deep impact post.
Okay, and deep impact basically is going deep, looking at some prospects who have some real high upside.
Yeah, sometimes it's not deep enough and I get scolded. Shout out to Jay, but no, yeah. So I'll be getting deeper throughout the season, and yeah, I think kind of for dynasty leagues where kind of my approach to fantasy baseball in general is a win now approach. So I tend to trade my just for example, I had Gregory Polanco and I had him early last year. I thought he was going to be a monster, but I traded him away this year with Anthony Rendon for Robinson Cano.
Okay, well,
So
that's ooh.
I'm all about trading. Yeah, I kind of regret it now, but I'm all about trading my high impact prospects and kind of backfilling the roster with prospects that I think will still provide some short term impact. So I think I wound up picking up Mookie Betts, and now
Yep.
look. So it's the sort of thing where I want to win now. I'm going to trade my prospects because I know I can always backfill an Oscar Tavares with Jock Peterson, which I did this year too. So just kind of my approach to leagues is win now. So yeah, I'll be looking at some deep prospects, not necessarily top prospects, but then I'll also look at some deep league options like Josh Beckett before the season.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. It's funny you say that because I've kind of wavered back and forth on whether how much value prospects have. For example, in one keeper league I'm in, where it's 10 keepers, I actually brought Oscar Tavares through as one of my 10 guys this year. Now my team, I won last year, and my team was kind of primed to win. Although with the injuries I've had this year, I'm in 11th. With that said, it's hard for me to let go of a guy like Tavares because I look at Oscar Tavares and I see, I mean, man, kind of a young Barry Bonds, Vlad Guerrero. The guy can just hit everything. At, and the flip side of that is then I'll go and, I'll actually watch baseball games and remember, even when these guys get called up, how often it usually takes for them to develop into quality players.
Yeah.
With that said, let's talk a couple of deep league guys. I'm going to throw a couple names at you here, and then I'd like to hear some of yours. But one guy who I think could have a sooner rather than later impact, and I spoke with Rudy last week about him, is Anthony Gose of the Blue Jays. Obviously, because of opportunity, Colby Rasmus, free agent at the end of the season. And Gose, if he can learn how to bunt, and he's been bunting really well lately, I mean, he's got pop. I mean, he could be a 15-homer, 50 steal guy. That's not crazy. Any initial thoughts on Gose? And that's just my Toronto Blue Jays homerism coming in here.
Yeah, Ghost. I mean, once a big time prospect, maybe never a top prospect according to all the lists out there, but certainly a big prospect of theirs. Yeah, I'm a fan of a certain type of prospect, one that can provide short term impact, which he can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a chance of him providing impact last year if he started off a bit better, but he's the type of guy that he's got that approach. I'm looking for the Goses, the Jock Petersons, the guys who, even better, Oscar Tavares, obviously, when it comes to contact and putting the ball in play, he's not going to have a ton of discipline, Oscar Tavares. He's going to put the ball in play. But from a fantasy perspective, that's where the counting stats are.
Exactly.
So, Anthony Gose, Jock Peterson, they probably won't have as much discipline, but they have the power, they have the pop, they have the speed. Yeah, like you said, if he can beat out a ground ball, which will help his BABIP, have a decent approach, line drive, ground ball because he's quick versus trying to hit home runs. It's kind of like Christian Yelich.
Yep.
Gose is like kind of a poor man, Christian Yelich. Yelich, he's got an awesome home run to fly ball ratio, so it's actually pretty impressive. But he knows he can put the ball on the ground because he can beat out a ground ball, and if he sticks with that approach with line drives, he's going to be a fantasy asset like he has already been this year. So yeah, I think Ghost maybe is 50 to 70% of what Christian Yelich could be.
Okay. So let's talk about how deep we're going here in terms of deep impact prospects. Are we talking guys in single A? Are we talking guys 2 years away, 3 years away?
Yeah, I'm all about impact.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called deep impact, but I'm about guys that will provide value to your team in the near future. So like right now, I looked at coming out tomorrow. I looked at Susak, who's a catcher for the Giants.
Okay.
I
don't know if you realize this, Dan, but he's blocked.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. So, and not only is he blocked, but he's blocked a little more now with Hector Sanchez, who's been performing pretty well. But he's the type of guy, sort of like Tommy La Stella before the season, not nearly as blocked, but the type of guy that, if Buster Posey gets hurt, I don't think Hector Sanchez can consume full time. And, Buster Posey's not going to move over to first base probably next year either. But, it's the sort of guy where if someone gets hurt or if someone falls off, they're the type of guys that can provide impact right now. So Tommy La Stella, he's not going to be a counting stat stud, but I'm in a few different leagues where it's OBP and slugging, and if you don't need the home run and stolen base counting stats, a guy like Tommy La Stella is a poor man's Dustin Pedroia. So that's the type of thing I'm looking for. I'll talk about guys in AAA and AA, but most of our readers and commenters, they know the guys. They know the Oscar Tavareses of the world. So I was gonna, I looked at a Mookie Betts before this season where he went crazy, or a Garen Cicchini, who probably sooner than later, if Will Middlebrooks keeps sucking / getting hurt, and something happens to Xander Bogaerts, Garen Cicchini can come up and provide value this year.
Okay, let's talk about. I'm going to throw a couple questions at you here. Let's just say, regardless of timetable, if you've got, let's say, a top three list of impact fantasy prospects, guys who are going to be the most relevant, let's say we're drafting 5 years from now,
Yeah.
which three prospects would you take over everyone else? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah. I'm going to go Gregory Polanco, and it's not because of his year this year. I genuinely loved him last year, and he's the type of guy where, so I like him better than Oscar Taveras as of early last year because he's the type of guy that ton of contact,
Okay.
similar to Taveras. Taveras might make more contact. I don't know off the top of my head, but Gregory Polanco has that approach. He's got the speed, he's got the power. Oscar Taveras, obviously, not a burner, but Gregory Polanco will put the ball in play. He can beat out a ground. Basically, he's got the approach that will keep his BABIP elevated.
Right.
BABIP's a lot about luck, but at the same time, if you have the right approach, line drives, obviously power, so that some of your fly balls can turn into home runs. No pop-up problems. A big ground ball rate's fine if you can beat it out. So Gregory Polanco is probably number one to me, and he probably was at some point last year, not just this year.
Okay, so Polanco number one. Give me your next two.
Polanco number one. God, I want to say.
You got to say Tavares, man. Help me out.
I know. I'm stuck here depending on your league format. It's got to be Oscar Taveras because of his long-term impact.
Right.
So as long as the ankle holds up, he should be a monster. He puts the ball in play. He does so with a sense of authority. He's got that, Vladimir Guerrero. I don't know. I don't want to even reference him, but when I watch him, he's the type of guy that will decide to swing the bat before the ball is even at the plate. And I think I saw Vladimir Guerrero hit a home run when the ball bounced before the plate. So he's the type of guy where if he decides to swing, he's going to mash it.
Right.
Then third is, if you're in it for the counting stats, I really like Jock Peterson.
It's funny you say that because I was going to say you mentioned him a couple times already, and he's a couple years away, I think. Correct?
He's. I'm pretty sure he's in AAA. He's only 22, so from an age perspective,
Is he
he's
in AAA already?
I believe so. He's a stud. Yeah, you look that up unless you want me to. But I'm pretty sure he's in AAA. He's tearing. I know he's tearing it up. He's on pace for like 35. He's going to have contact issues, but again, he's the type of guy that I liked him better than Yasiel Puig, but Puig's insane, and I would like to talk about him real quick. But I'm going to go Jock Peterson if you're in a counting stats league. And let me preface that with there's pitchers out there that are fantastic, but if you want me to name probably 10 prospects in order of how I like them, I doubt I'll put a pitcher in there.
Yeah, you got to go bats. I mean, there's just too much, too much question, especially with the UCL apocalypse we're having right now. Okay,
Yeah.
so you reference Puig. Let's, hey man, it's a long weekend. You just steer it, buddy. I'm following you.
All right, I'll go quick on him, but real quick. So Peterson or I really like Mookie Betts.
Really?
He gets on base. So if you're not in a counting stats league,
Okay.
if you're in a dynasty league that uses OBP and slugging like I do, I'm in two high impact leagues, a lot of money. We don't use home runs, we don't use stolen base, or we use net stolen bases. I think Mookie Betts is going to be an on base stud. Jackie Bradley times 5.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
I think depending on the league and position flexibility, I like Jock Peterson and Mookie Betts top 5.
Holy cow. Okay, get to Puig. Talk to me about Puig.
All right, Puig. So the only thing I want to say I was concerned about him last year. Elevated BABIP. The expected BABIP said he should have been dropping off. He's got contact issues. I'm pretty impressed by him this year. He's keeping the BABIP elevated again, and
I hope you're impressed with him this year.
he's honestly the only difference between him and Mike Trout now, for sure, without hesitation, is the contact rate. Throughout the careers, it'll be like a 10% difference. So
Okay.
Mike Trout will be that much better just because he makes that much more contact. But Yasiel Puig, I look at home run to fly ball ratio and their average distance, fly ball and home run average distance. Last year, his home run to fly ball ratio was elevated. This year, he's at the same exact home run to fly ball ratio pretty much, but his average distance went up, 10 to 15 feet. So now it's sustainable. Now we know his home run to fly ball ratio, his home run rate, that's sustainable. His BABIP is elevated because that ratio is impressive, because he's fast enough to beat out a ground ball. And his line drive rate's down. So there's a chance that pops up, and his BABIP, which is like 370, 380, or even, I think maybe 400 right now, there's a chance that BABIP really does kind of stay in that 375, 380 range.
So if you were drafting, if it's year one of a dynasty league, let's keep it 5x5, okay?
Yeah.
For the people.
Okay, you got it.
So we're talking 5x5. Who's your dynasty league starting this year? Give me your top 5. Trout.
Trout, I still love Paul Goldschmidt. Wish he had a little better of a supporting cast.
Yep.
I love McCutchen, but real dynasty league, he's probably still up there. Again, I'm all about the win now. So
Okay.
Miguel Cabrera is still on my list. Yep. I hope he can pop a few games at third base and therefore keep that eligibility next year. So those 3, Trout, Goldie, Cabrera, not necessarily in order, that order. Trout's number 1. I'm going to put Puig number 5.
Okay.
I can't put him number 4 because of the contact rate. So number 4, I mean, if you can guarantee health, obviously you have to put Tulowitzki in there.
Yeah, wow. Guarantee health.
And guarantee health and that Colorado BABIP effect. It's insane. But
it is insane in a good way.
Yes. Number 4. I can't put Puig number 5.
All right. You know what? I put you on the spot. So, it's interesting that he's cracked the top 5 anyway.
Yeah, I think he has. Yep.
Okay, I want to get just a little bit away from that because I know you're a numbers guy. We only got a couple minutes left here. I want to talk to you about 2 players in particular. One is a guy that I'm enamored with. He got off to an insane start, cooled off lately. Gray doesn't like him. Gray thinks he's just a hot potato. Charlie Blackmon.
Oh, I like Blackmon a lot. Now he has fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
I actually own him in 3 out of 4 of my leagues that I impulsively check every second. I like Charlie Blackmon a lot. Now he has fallen off.
Yep.
The home run to fly ball ratio is going to drop. I wish I can look at his contact rate right now, but I know as of like last week, he was still, top 10 in all of baseball from a contact rate perspective. And that was backed up by swinging strike rate or the whiff rate. I mean, he makes a ton of contact. And I actually, prior to the season, I had a post on Razzball. It was looking at sleepers based on BABIP, expected BABIP.
Okay.
But there were certain factors associated with ensuring an elevated BABIP: power, speed. Blackmon had those, so he is a power speed guy. As he was on pace for 30-30 as of like 2 weeks ago, or even it might still be based on his hot start. I think he's more of a 15-20. The Colorado effect, I think, can keep his BABIP elevated. The problem is, the Drew Stubbs still, the Corey Dickerson, Michael Kadire is back. That's the problem. So I think if he had a full season and they put him out there every day, no matter what type of week or 2 week or 3 week slump, he would sustain. The problem is that platoon effect can start happening, and that could just...
Let me ask it to you this way, Dan, just for the sake of time.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay, buddy. Project right now, 2015, so next year, we're going into next year's draft. What are you projecting for Charlie Blackmon slash-wise?
So a full year, if he had a full year, next year I'd project a 282 batting average based on the fact that he can keep his BABIP elevated.
282, pretty specific like that, yep.
282, can't go 285, can't go 280. Maybe 283. But power, speed, I think he can elevate the BABIP, makes a ton of contact. So, I think he can bat as high as 290 a full season of confidence. And yeah, I think he's kind of a maybe 15 to 18 home run guy, depending on the luck.
Yep.
And 15 to 20 stolen bases too. So 15-15, 282 batting average, and 95 runs if he would actually bat leadoff.
Okay, one more guy real quick.
Okay.
Give me his 2015 projected stat line. Okay, Brian Dozier.
Oh yeah, he is a monster as long as they don't put the shift on. He, honestly, okay. So he's 5'7", whatever it is on paper. That's baloney. I'm in Minnesota. He's like 5'6", 5'7", maybe 5'8". The guy gets the barrel to the bat and pulls the heck out of the ball. I think he's at 11 or 12 home runs. Every single one of them are pulls with with authority. So if you look at his home run, fly ball, average distance, as well as the pull effect, he pulls the heck out of the ball. He's batting like, I actually have it right here. So
okay, just give me the line for next year. We got to go.
Next year, 260. 15, and more if they don't put the shift on.
Okay, fair enough. That's pretty conservative, but I like what you're thinking. Listen, Dano, really appreciate it. You want to follow this guy at Roto Banter. This is a guy, if you really want to get deep into the statistics, this is a guy to talk to. Dano from Razzball at Roto Banter. Thanks, buddy, for coming on the holiday. You're a good man. I don't care what Grace says about you. I like you.
Thanks, Nick. Let me know if you need any thermal packaging when you're on the road.
Yeah.
When are you in Minneapolis? Real quick, I forgot about
I think it's September 1st, but I gotta double check that.
Yeah, all right.
But I know you'll be out there. Okay, Dan. Thanks again. We'll have you on again soon. Really appreciate it, buddy. We'll be right back with hopefully with Pat Mayo from the Fantasy Sports Network right after this. Okay, we're back and we're very excited for the very first time to have all the way in from I don't know if it's really my home city. Montreal is where I'm from, but I spent 20 years in Toronto. So it's great to have from the Fantasy Sports Network, Mr. Pat Mayo at the PME on Twitter. Pat, welcome to Razzball Radio, buddy. Great to have you on.
This is exciting. The video chat, I mean, this is much better than just, me in my basement on my phone talking to someone. Now you can see light behind me. I feel like a big deal. Yeah,
actually, and you are at you are right now at the Fantasy Sports Network. I can see the studio there behind you.
Studio's there. There's action going on. It's exciting times.
And if you haven't yet been to fantasysportsnetwork.com, it is the first 24/7 all nothing but fantasy sports television network, and it's the great people up at Anthem Media up in Toronto who have also built great networks like the Fight Network. And we are also really excited to shortly be part of the family. Just remind Chad that. Give him a little elbow for me, a little hockey elbow.
Very soon. He's actually in the office right next to me, so I'll just hit the wall really hard.
Chad.
Or maybe I'll turn up the sound and he can just hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat, I love watching the Fantasy Sports Network, and every time I'm on there, I'm seeing your pretty face, buddy. I mean, are you on there 24/7? Do you sleep? And
I don't, but I also have this thing. Right? They just strap a GoPro to my head, so they can just flick me on live at any point. I'm usually just arguing with something about fantasy, so it really has a good crossover appeal.
But you definitely want to follow Pat on Twitter again at the PME, the Pat Mayo Experiment, because this guy is so plugged in, but also really funny guy. It's something about us Canadians, I think. So let's, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about fantasy baseball since you are so plugged in. Let's talk about a guy that I know everyone's talking about these days. He's off to a great start. It's making me crazy that he has no wins. Jeff Samardzija. I know you have some real firm opinions on him. Talk to me about your thoughts on the Chicago Cubs ace.
Well, the best thing that could have ever happened to anyone who owns Jeff Samardzija at this point is that he has no wins. Because if he had, let's say he was 8-0. I mean, obviously it hasn't been a good thing because it's hurting your fantasy value. But if he was 8-0, or even if he was 4-4, we would be looking at his peripheral numbers a little bit closer,
right,
and finding out that he's just not striking guys out at the same rate as he used to, and the walks haven't fallen so much that his strikeout to walk has actually gotten better. It's actually gotten worse. His expected ERA is almost 2 runs higher than his actual ERA. The strand rate's super high. The fly ball rate, is coming down a little bit, but it's still not where you'd like to see it. So he's going to regress big time, but just no one's talking about that. The only narrative is that he plays for the crappy Cubs and can't win a game. If you're looking to sell him right now, you could still probably sell him as a top 20 pitcher, and he's not a top 20 pitcher. Maybe a top 40 pitcher, maybe somewhere between 30 and 40. But for the value that you'll get for him right now, all you have to do is tell people like, look, He's either going to get traded, which would be a terrible thing for his stats, but he might get a few wins, or that wins are kind of random. You can see how well people can pitch and not get wins. This way, I mean, that he's eventually going to luck into, let's say by the end of the year. It was like that Cliff Lee year 2 years ago, when I think he went 6-9. But he still ended up as a top 10 fantasy pitcher. This is not what's happening here with Samardzija. He's going to regress big time, and you need to sell him now before everything, his ERA and WHIP explode. And he's probably going to give up 6 runs one of these nights and win that game. Everyone will be like, oh, he's back on track now. And it's not going to be that way. So you get rid of Jeff Samardzija while you can.
Okay, so what would be a fair value for him? Let's say I'm offering you, I don't know, maybe Jason Kipnis getting close to coming back from that oblique strain.
For sure. Jason Kipnis is right now is someone who is wildly underrated. Although I did want to ask you, going from this point on, assuming Kipnis returns tomorrow like he's supposed to, or returns Tuesday like he's supposed to, would you rather have Brian Dozier or Jason Kipnis?
Oh, I'd rather have Kipnis.
It's very close, though. Like, they're very much the same player. The only thing that Kipnis does better is average, and he doesn't do it significantly better.
Okay, that's fair. The only concern I have, and this was, we just had Dano on from Razzball, and he was actually talking about Brian Dozier and that he pulls everything. All his homers this year are pull home runs. So his concern is dealing with the shift, whereas I don't have the numbers in front of me, but just from watching Kipnis, looks to me like he spreads the ball around a little bit better. But that's interesting.
Yeah, he does. He does, but I mean, that's also why Brian Dozier is going to hit 220. As long as he keeps continuing to walk at the same pace, he's probably going to lead the league in runs. Like, he's off to a big head start here. And when you're talking about second baseman, he's going to hit 20 to 25 home runs and steal 30 to 40 bases. Like, he's a top 30 player overall, as long as he just doesn't completely hit a wall. And in terms of pulling the ball, I mean, Jose Bautista hits all of his home runs to left field. It's not a big deal as long as he hits them.
How do I argue with that kind of logic? Talk to me about Steven Strasburg. Obviously, he didn't get off to a great start. He's been pitching well lately. You holding him, or is he also a sell candidate for you?
No, he's the buy low of all buy lows. He's still a top 10 pitcher in my book. And look, for as bad of a season as he's having right now, his ERA is still, it's below 3.5. His expected ERA is the mid-2s, and he's striking out more batters per inning than almost any other starter in the majors, and the walks have dropped to go along with it. It's all first-inning problems for him. If you can ever escape the first inning without really doing too much damage, I mean, he's been awesome anyway. If he can get rid of those first-inning problems, he's going to be a top 5 pitcher, especially now that we're seeing, all these top-end pitchers dropping off the face of the earth due to injury. I think that Strasburg's actually pretty safe. If he can get out of that first inning, that's all it needs to be. I think you're going to see a top 10 pitcher by the end of the year, and that's even including some of the bad starts that he's had already. By the time it gets to that, come September 31st, you're going to have Strasburg on your roster, and you're probably going to be contending for the championship.
Okay, that's interesting. So let me ask you this then, because one of the things with Strasburg this year is he wasn't pitching as well on the road. You buy into it all, pitching on the road versus pitching at home?
I do, but I want to see a longer sample than just a handful of starts. Someone like Jaime Garcia, for example, just historically does not pitch well on the road, and you always want to start him at home. And I think for Strasburg, I want to see, I want to get at least a base of 20 starts one way, 20 starts another. See it factor over year to year. I don't want to be too reactionary based on, go look at the opponents he had. Go look at the weather that day, because we know in April there was a ton of these rain games where it was just abnormally cold in April this year, and we saw a lot of pitchers struggle with that. So I'd like to see it evolve and the sample expand over the course of the season. Yeah. I'd be more willing to make a determination then.
Yes, it was a very cold April. By the way, how's the weather in Toronto? Because I escaped after the worst winter that I've ever remembered.
Yeah, it was a bad winter. It's like 24 degrees today. It's awesome. I'm wearing shorts. It's terrific.
That's Celsius for our American friends. That's about 80 degrees-ish.
80, yeah.
So that's all right.
This is nice. Think New York. Think the weather here. It's same thing.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you know what? Next winter when it gets cold, you can come down and visit me in Phoenix. We'll do a little golfing. Give me another one or two guys that you're buying low on right now. Guys that you think are not viewed as to what as to their performance is actually indicating.
I guess it's tough. I mean, Matt Latos is a weird example. I mean, he's not going to be back probably till the end of the month. But he got traded. I was looking at trades straight up for him earlier today, and I'm seeing Henry Mejia straight up for Matt Latos. That's craziness.
Yeah, that is
if
crazy.
People are willing to sell Matt Latos for that little, go ahead. Just you pick up Mejia off the waivers to get you maybe a handful of saves. We don't even know if he's going to keep the job long term. Just he's a closer for the moment. Ronnie Belisario was traded straight up for Matt Latos. Like, that's crazy. Matt Latos has the potential to be a top 20 pitcher, whether he is or not. It's hard to say, considering I think he's injured every single part of his body. But if he comes back, he's healthy. I wouldn't bet against the guy, and I at least take a cheap gamble on him, something like that. And Dallas Keuchel, I think that people are so willing. They see the game logs, and they just don't believe it. And there's nothing to say that what he's doing is an aberration, to saying it's fluky. It all actually kind of stacks up. But people say that he plays for the Houston Astros and think, oh, well, he can't be good. And you just use their Astros bias against them. Go out and buy Keuchel. Right now he's looking like he's going to be a top 20 option the rest of the season. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Rest of the season, from this point on, who has better 5x5 numbers? Dallas Keuchel or Justin Verlander?
Oh, man.
I think it's Dallas Keuchel, as crazy as that sounds.
You know what? It doesn't sound crazy, Pat, and I got to be honest with you. I am really concerned with Verlander. He's the ticks have just dropped off his fastball. It's hard when I'm talking to you because you talk so fast, and I feel like I got to talk at the same speed as you. So, but which is great actually, because you get a lot of information condensed into a short period of time. That's not crazy. I mean, if I was actually going to put a nickel on it in Vegas, that's not crazy. I don't know that I would trade Verlander for Keuchel straight up, because I could probably get more for Verlander. But I mentioned today in the hot sheet, you want to trade Justin Verlander because something isn't right there. I don't know what it is, but something isn't right. Let me ask you too. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm with you on that, though. You make a good point. Yeah, I mean, Verlander just possesses more value, obviously. But even if you can target, let's say, the Keuchel owner in your league with Verlander, you can get Keuchel and another piece as well, and then you can significantly increase the value of your roster.
Okay, another guy I was talking about this morning, 35% owned, Drew Hutchinson. Now, I was slow to come around on Hutchinson because, other than his last year in the minors, didn't really strike a lot of guys out. Coming back from Tommy John, American League East, he'd never done it before. He's 35% owned, and he's pitching real well.
He should be owned. The strikeout to walk ratio is really the most impressive thing with him. And he's changed it's not so much his delivery, but he's changed the selection of his pitches. His changeup has become a legit out pitch for him. He's just getting everyone to chase it outside the zone, and that's leading to all the strikeouts. I'm curious to see what he does this week. He has the 2 starts. They're both at Rogers Center. His ERA at home this year in 3 starts is well over 7. Now, those came earlier in the year, and he has a larger sample on the road. So, I mean, he has the 2 best matchups you could probably ever have, at least at this point of the season. He gets the Rays and the Royals, both of whom have team ISOs under 100 for the past 3 weeks. So they are the teams to pick on right now, whether you're streaming. But I think he's a good spec ad. You use him these 2 starts, see if he treats you all right, and then going forward, you might play the matchups a little bit. But I do think he has potential top 50 upside at starting pitcher if he can keep the strikeout to walk ratio around 4-1, which is where it's at right now.
All right, good stuff. So other than Samardzija and Verlander, give me another guy that you're selling right now. Red light special.
Selling right now, I mean, I guess Tanaka is the guy I'm looking at to sell. Not to say that his stats are unsustainable, because they actually are pointing to be rather sustainable. But I think that people are treating him like a top 3 option. When he gets around to the second and third time seeing these teams, they're going to pick up the wind up a little bit. They're going to see the splitter a little bit more. And I just feel like you could probably maximize your value for him now. I mean, he's a great hold. He's going to be a great pitcher. But if you should always be looking to buy and looking to sell. And if you can sell him for more than he's worth, then yeah, go out and get 2 good pieces. Go get yourself, I don't know, a Steven Strasburg and someone else, because that's what he's commanding right now on the open market. And 3 weeks from now, it just might not be the same thing. So he's not necessarily a sell high, but he is a player I'm actively looking to sell if the price is right.
Interesting. Okay, and give me one more bat that you're looking to buy right now.
One more bat. I mean, I've been trying to buy as much Jose Abreu stock as possible while he's on the DL, but I'm going back to my main man, Ryan Braun. The oblique, I thought might put him back on the DL. That doesn't seem to be a problem, and people are just frustrated with him. It's not like he's been bad this year. Not at all. He's hitting over 300. The power's still there, and he's already missed time. We thought the thumb injury was going to be a problem. That turned out, who cares? The PED stuff, well, his power's returned. He's basically the same guy that he always was. And now with the oblique, hopefully it doesn't hamper him, but it just seems like his owners are frustrated. I still think he's a top 5 outfielder. I'm not going to waver on that. and that's not what he's going for right now in trades. So he's being sold as a top 50-ish player, not the top 15 player he actually is. So even if I had to look like I was spending a lot to go get him, he's someone I would actively go out and try to get right now, where he would have cost you, Andrew McCutchen in the preseason. Now you could probably get him for, a hot-hitting Adrian Gonzalez, or even someone like Clayton Kershaw, because I just value hitting so much more than pitching. Not to say that Kershaw's not the best, because he is, but any pitcher for a top 15 hitter is a trade I'm always going to make.
High quality information. You're always going to get it at the PME on Twitter, of course. And if you haven't yet checked out the Fantasy Sports Network, you need to do that. Click the little watch TV icon in the top right hand corner, because not only are you getting great content, but the coolest thing about what you guys have going on right now, there is tons of data all around the screen there. I mean, really good stuff. So if you don't have time to do the research and, to supplement, of course, the Razzball Hot Sheet, definitely Fantasy Sports Network. Pat, stick around for a second. I want to talk to you real quick, but thanks, Razzballers. Enjoy the long weekend. Tomorrow we got Sky and the Guru on. We're back to our regular rotation. We'll see you tomorrow.